The very first thing we have to do here is graph. This is a two-part question. It is asking you for the intercepts, and it is asking you to graph it. All right, so remember when you do the intercepts, you just zero out the opposite guy. If you want the x-intercept, zero out the y. If you want the y-intercept, zero out the x and solve. So in this case, if I zero out the y, I just get x equals -4. That means my x-intercept is -4, 0. And so I'm going to put a point at -4, 0. For my y-intercept, I will zero out the x. So I will get 2y equals -4. For this guy, I have to solve. I have to divide by what's in front of my y. Y equals -2, which means this intercept is 0, -2. So I go and put a point at 0, -2. And then to graph this line, I just connect those 2 points. So I'm going to get a straight edge, connect those 2 points, and that will be my line. So you have 3 parts to this. I am looking for an x-intercept, I am looking for a y-intercept, and I am looking for my graph itself. 2 ways to ask for a slope. The first way is that I have given you a graph and I want the slope. So with a graph, you literally just have to count, all right? If I start at this point right here, how do I get to this point? So to get to that point, I am going to go down 1, 2. That is my numerator, down 2, which means that is -2. And then from there, I am going to go right 1, 2, 3. That is a +3. So my slope is going to be -2/3. If you were to have something like that, so let's say you got -1/0, that would be undefined. And if you got 0/-1, that would just be 0. So those are special cases. Undefined is going to be a vertical line. 0 slope is going to be a horizontal line. If I just give you the 2 points, you do not have to graph it. You are just going to use your slope formula, which hopefully you know by now, but you subtract your y's, that's your numerator, subtract your x's, that is your denominator. Biggest problem I saw on your quizzes is that you randomly connected 2 different. So I would have people say -1 minus -5. No, you just subtracted a y and an x if you did that, okay? So it doesn't matter which one's first, as long as you keep them in the same order. Truly, it just matters that, let's say I start with this guy, -13. So if I start with -13 and subtract my -1, then what is below the 13 must be the guy that's in the group with the 13. So this first one then has to be -5. All right, as long as you keep them in the same order, it does not matter what order you start with, all right? Because sometimes it's easier to subtract one way or the other, and that's perfectly fine. So for this one, we would have -13 minus a -1 is plus a +1. -13 plus 1 is -12. And then -5 minus 2 is -7. This is not simplified. If you have -12 over -7, I expect your slope to look like this, +12/7. A negative over a negative is a positive, okay? The next few questions deal with slope-intercept form. So recall what slope-intercept form is. Y equals mx plus b. Specifically, you are going to be filling in your m, which is your slope, and you are going to fill in your b, which is your y-intercept. Okay? So, this means if I give you something like this question and I say, here is your slope, here is your y-intercept, you literally just have to write this equation and plug those numbers in. You are not solving anything. You are literally just plugging those into the right spots. I'm just testing, do you know this particular linear formula, okay? So for this one, you're literally just going to say y equals, this is my m, so -5/3 x. This is my b plus 5. And you are finished with that problem. So this first one gives it to you in standard form. So really you're just trying to get y by itself. You don't have to find your slope. You don't have to find your y-intercept. You're literally just solving for y. Get y by itself. So for something like this, I'm just going to move my x group over, which is going to put it in the opposite. Now, something I noticed is that negative needs to come down. Some of you forgot you had a negative with your y. So that leaves negative 3y over here by itself. And when the 2x moves over, it changes to a negative 2x. And then your negative 19 stays exactly the same. Negative 19 will stay the same. And then my last step here is to divide everything by that negative 3. All right, so negative 3 divided by negative 3, you should get your y by itself. Negative 2 divided by negative 3, that's a negative divided by a negative, so that's a positive 2/3 times x. Negative 19 divided by negative 3, while it cannot reduce, again, it will be a positive 19/3. And then you are finished. That's all you have to do there. The next question gives you a point and gives you the slope, okay? So you can use y equals mx plus b if you want and plug it in, or you can use the one that we have been using for the last couple of sections, all right? We have an x1, we have a y1, and we have an m, okay? And so for this, you could say, I just want to do y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. Then you can just distribute and move your 3 over, and you're done. So if I want to solve this guy, I can just distribute that 1/6. So I have y minus 3 equals, remember 1/6 times your x is just 1/6 x, all right? If I'm multiplying 1/6 times negative 4 over 1, remember, you don't have to have a common denominator for these guys. You just cross cancel, right? 2, 3, right? So I get negative 2/3. All right, so when I'm multiplying 1/6 and 4, I'm going to get 2/3, and it's a positive times a negative. So negative 2/3. All right, my last step then is to move that 3 over. So I need to add the 3 to get rid of it on this side. And I need to add the 3 over here. All right, now when I'm adding fractions, I do need a common denominator, okay? So when I'm adding these, I need to worry about common denominator. My common denominator is 3. So multiply by 3, this is going to become 9, this is going to become 3. So I have negative 2/3 plus 9/3 there. Negative 2 plus 9 is 7. So this right here is going to become 7/3. So to write it in slope-intercept, I need to put the 1/6 x plus the 7/3. So you just have your y minus your y, your slope, and your x minus your x. Then you're just distributing and moving the number over, and you're done. So the worst part of this is working with your fractions. Make sure you know how to multiply and add fractions. Very important. All right, this last one on this page, they want the same form, but they did not give you the slope. So the difference here is you have to start with your slope formula and figure out your slope, and then you can use either point to put it in slope-intercept, okay? I picked this one specifically because of the numbers that it gave me here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate my slope using my slope formula. So I'm going to say y, so negative 3, y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. All right, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6 over negative 3. That reduces to positive 2. So I know my slope is 2. I can use either one of these points, all right? Does anybody see a point that kind of stands out? Which one?
0.
Yeah, this point stands out. This is my y-intercept. My x is 0. Remember to find y-intercept, you 0 out your x. So if they give you that, they've already handed you your b as a nice little gift wrapped token there, and you can just go straight to y equals mx plus b. All right, so you could say, oh, y equals mx plus, they handed me my y-intercept b. Let's say they don't gift wrap it and hand it to you like that. Then at this point, you can use either of those points and do exactly what I just did. So let's say I chose this guy for some reason because I didn't recognize the other guy was my y-intercept. That's perfectly fine. It's just the long way to do it. But let's say I do it that way. Y minus my y1 equals mx minus my x1. All right, and of course, those are going to turn to plus. All right, then I'm just going to solve like I did above. I'm going to distribute my slope. So I'm going to get 2x, and 2 times 3 is 6. And then subtract my 3 over. And lo and behold, I get y equals 2x plus 3. It does not matter which point you use, you will get the same answer here. You are using the 2 points to find your slope. And then you're using that same equation that we have used for the last 3 or 4 types of problems to get your slope-intercept form. Graphing in slope-intercept form is really even easier. You do not have to calculate anything, okay? You literally just take this equation, start at your y-intercept, and walk according to your slope, all right? So my y-intercept here is this, plus b, which means I am going to start on my y-axis at positive 5, which is right here. Now my slope is negative 5/4, which means I can go down 5 and right 4. That's negative 5/4. Or I can go up 5 and left 4. For a negative slope, one of my movements has to be negative. Now in this particular case, I would choose this one because this guy is going to take me off the graph. If I went up 5, I'm off my graph. So anytime I have one that's going to take me off the graph, I'm going to use the other guy to keep me on the graph, all right? So I'm going to walk down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I am going to go right 4, only one negative movement, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my next point is going to be right here. And a quick check is if I have a negative slope, then from left to right, my line should be going down. And so if you have done your second point and you have a negative slope and your line is going up, you did your slope wrong. Okay, so it's a really quick check on did I do this correctly. So when you do this, they've given you your point, they have given you your slope, you are using point slope. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Distribute, move your number over. If it is a fraction, common denominator, and then you're done. The only thing that would change here is if this was reducible. Had this been 18 over 2, I would have changed that to 9, okay? Reduce it, but leave it as an improper fraction if you can't reduce it. The line that I am looking for should go through the point negative 1, 3 and is perpendicular to this line. By saying the word perpendicular, they have actually told me something that I need to know. Again, I do not care about this part of my equation. I only care about the slope. So they gave me my x1, they gave me my y1, my m, I am going to flip this guy upside down. So instead of 1 over 2, I'm going to make it 2 over 1, all right, which is just 2. And instead of negative, I'm going to keep this guy positive. So flip it and negate it. And then you're just going to plug it in. You're going to say y minus y1 equals m times x. It's minus a negative, so plus 1. Distribute. Y minus 3, 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 1 is 2. And then we are going to add our 3 over. And so we are going to get y equals 2x plus 5, and we are finished. You are going to graph the line identical to how you graphed it when you just graphed the line itself without the inequality. The only difference in the line itself is whether it is dashed or solid, okay? And then you need to shade. But graphing the line works the same. So for this one, I am going to start on my y-axis at -3 down here. My slope is -8/5, which means I'm going to move -8 over +5 or +8 over -5. In this case, I'm actually going to use this guy because moving down 8 would take me off my graph, okay? So now I'm going to use +8 movement up, so that's going to take me up to 5, and then left 5, so my point's going to be over here. So I'm going to go up 8, left 5. But you can see when I connect these that I am going to get a negative slope, which is what I am looking for. Now, before I connect these, is this going to be solid or dashed? Well, that's where I go here. It is less than, not less than or equal to. So remember, if I have less than, greater than, this is dashed. If I have the or equal to's, it is solid. In this case, it is just less than, so I'm going to dash this. And then I have to decide where to shade. Y is less than, so I'm going to go to my y and I'm going to say, where is this graph smaller than -3 for my y's? It's smaller down here, so I'm going to shade down here. So I'm going to shade everything that is on this side of my line because that's where my y's are going down. All right?